5 o'clock in our time in England. So good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It's a great pleasure to have as our speaker, Professor Erin Galgay Walsh, who's Assistant Professor at the Divinity School in the University of Chicago. She did her doctorate at Duke University under the guidance of one of the great luminaries of the Syriac world, Professor Luc van Rompuy, who's now retired and back in the Netherlands. Erin has a great interest in the reception of the New Testament in late antiquity, and especially in the Syriac world. And last year, she was actually awarded a very distinguished prize, the De Groote Prize for Biblical Studies and Reception History, given by the Society for Biblical Literature. And this was for a paper entitled The Gendered Body in Verse, Jacobus Roeg and Romanos the Melode, on the woman with the flow of blood. It's a very interesting homily. And that will, I hope, be published before too long. And at present, she's working on a book on the treatment of other anonymous women in the New Testament in Greek and Syriac writers. So that should be a marvelous book to look forward to. So today, she's going to introduce us to a 5th century Syriac poet, Narsai, from the Persian Empire, one of the great poets of late antiquity in Syriac. And she's going to talk about his first homily on the Virgin Mary. So Erin, over to you. Thank you very much for speaking to us today.
Thank you so much, Professor Brock, and to the Oxford Interfaith Forum for hosting me, and to all of you for coming for this event. So today I wanted to share with you Narsai's Memra number 5 on the commemoration of Mary. And the passage that I'll read and that we'll talk about today is roughly the little less than the first half of the full Memra. And if you're interested in reading the entire thing, I'm happy to email it to you. And I think it will also be published with the volume that Robert Kitchen, who is here, and Christian Heel and Aaron Butts are putting out of Narsai's corpus. So that should be out fairly soon. So one of the reasons I wanted to read the first part is because I think there's Narsai really flows from one theme to the other and ends and culminates in the passage on Mary. So I'm not holding any other passages about Mary back from you. This is, even though it's the commemoration of Mary, you get a sense of his larger theological vision. So without further ado, I will begin reading. So the refrain is recorded in the manuscripts. Praise to the good one who, while not in need, clothed himself with the needy one, so that through him he might enrich all. My brothers, the greatness of his love, the Creator wished to reveal through a human, and he gave forth to the heavenly ones the utterance, let us make humankind. He created everything from nothing, and he did not consult. And with regard to the human being, he said, come, let us make humankind in our image. He made the spiritual beings, yet he did not want to reveal the image of his divine essence. And at the constitution of contemptible dust, he uncovered his hiddenness. In the constitution of all, he sought neither help nor a counselor. And in the case of dust, more contemptible than everything, he sought help and counsel. He made the creation into what it was without calling it his image, and he took up from it a hidden portion and called it his image. In wisdom, he did what he did wisely, so that by wisdom he would give the work of his hands the wisdom to know his name. He wanted to reveal the name of his being in the image of humanity, namely that while he is one, there are with him beings that are equal. As in a symbol, he revealed to his creatures the power of his hiddenness, and that which could not be revealed, he showed to them in a revealed image. Only that he is, he taught the world by means of his creations, and how he is, he did not wish to reveal until the creation of humanity. Until the end of his work, he saved the mystery of the disclosure of the divine persons, and he taught all the power of his divine essence and the powers that are with him. In front of all, he gave forth the utterance, "Let us make humankind." And the powers on high marveled at it, wondering what it was and about whom. In great wonder, the spiritual ones stood as they paid heed and listened to it, and at its newness, they marveled without satiation. What is this new thing that the hidden nature proclaimed? And whom did he call as an aid for him in the constitution of his image? With whom does he take counsel before making the image of his divine essence? And how is it possible that the work of his hands would resemble him? Who is there with him who possesses creative power, whom he summons towards the constitution of the image of his image? It seems that he is with his divine essence in a different world. And if not, what is it that was said, "Come, let us make"? Had he said "come" in the singular, it would have been addressed to one person. Now that he said "come" in the plural, it should be thought that there are two. What I have said, the spiritual ones did not learn it openly. They only pondered what the meaning would be that was hidden in what they heard. They only heard it in their minds symbolically, not being able to grasp precisely the meaning of its significance. This alone the Creator wanted to let them know, that there is with him something that is hidden within his hiddenness. He revealed the mystery to them, not the proper explanation of that mystery, so that when it would be revealed, it would not be considered strange before their eyes. Because of them, God uttered a sound without words, and with a view to teaching them, he extended his work over 6 days. In 6 days, he completed his creation and sealed his words. And on the 7th day, he rested, although he did not need to rest. He did not rest because he did not toil. And on the 6th day, he spoke those words, "Come, let us make." And he made the image, and he bound in it all rational and irrational beings. With a body and a soul, he put together and fashioned the human being skillfully, so that he would resemble both heavenly and earthly beings. As an image, he placed him in the world, the royal city, for the rational and irrational beings to look at lovingly. As an oven, he built the simple one for the testing of all, that he might test in its heat the discernment that he placed in the rational beings. In a pleasing place, he introduced and placed him to make all envious of him, in order to see who rejoices in loving him and who grieves at his high rank. The multitudes on high he tested by means of the honor given to the one made from dust. And he found out for some of them that the gold of their minds was deceitful. He issued a boundary for the human while he knew that he would not keep it, so that through it he would reveal the human's inclination and the will of the evil one. From one fruit of a tree, he bade him access. And as soon as the evil one became aware of it, he became envious, deceived him, and made him a laughing stock. Envy blinded the discernment of the leader of the air, and he did not want to see the pleasing beauty in the image of humanity. Troubled by envy, the envious one did not become envious of the human being, but rather of the divine being for having named humanity by the image of his image. The rebel became envious presumptuously of the hidden being, and because he was not able to harm the divine being, he harmed his image. As a spy, the deceiver came to the innocent one, and he plundered his riches, stripped him, and left him naked. By shaming him, he supposed that he had shamed the name of the Creator, and the one blinded by envy did not know that he would do evil to himself. As at an image of the King of Kings, he was throwing words at him, and instead of stones, he hurled at him words of dishonor. In envy, he said, the Creator held back the tree, that you would not become heir of his divinity. The tree which he withheld from you possesses divinity, and if you eat, lo, you become a god like gods. These words the evil one hurled at the image of the good one, and he destroyed, hurled, derided him, and laughed at his fall. The good one, full of grace, looked at this derision, and he had mercy upon his image, that it might not be scoffed at by the rebellious ones. He punished him because he went astray, and then again he had pity on him with mercy, so that the hateful one might not boast because he cast the image down harshly. He issued a threat that was full of death on account of his transgression, and yet he made his body a source that let life flow from his race. Streams of people flowed from his body to the four corners of the world. And he filled the earth with the rational fruits that are from his limbs. Living fruits came forth from the one who was killed by food. And the hateful one saw it, and terror seized him about his transformation. He thought that if he would eat from the tree, he would die forever. And the good one did not want Satan's desire to go up until completion. And the medicine of life taken from life he placed within his body, so that it would run along with his propagation without end. In his offspring, he propagated and kept the name that he gave him, so that the name of his greatness would not disappear from his descendants. The name of his greatness he depicted upon the tablet of the fashioning of humans, and the evil one erased it. He depicted it again in Seth for the second time. About Seth, he said that in everything he resembled Adam, because in his body was hidden the mystery of the propagation of his race. He did not call Cain and Abel the image of Adam, for one would die and the other would perish in the judgment. In the third one that Adam begot, life came to dwell, and fittingly the son of Amram also called him the image of Adam. The image of Adam was going to receive the Lord of Adam, and in anticipation he placed the image from the beginning in Adam and his sons. Just like a foundation, he placed his name in the building of humanity, that they would build one upon the other, the image of the one who would come. On this agreement did he consult when saying, "Let us make man." And in this order, he called him the image of his divine essence. One from humanity was going to make a dwelling place for his love. And in anticipation, he called the constitution of humanity the image of his hiddenness. From the beginning, he placed upon humanity the name of his divine essence, that there would not be doubt when he would accomplish it, in fact. Until the end of times, what he did was kept in store, and in anticipation, he performed it symbolically until he would accomplish it. And if not, let everyone who speaks against my words say in what regard the human image resembles divinity. How is it possible that the nature of the hidden one, who is without composition, has resemblance in the thick nature of humans, which possesses composition? How can something created become like its creator? And how is something limited sufficient for one without limit? How can we believe that a human is the image of divinity? For behold, the divinity has no limit or composition. Assuming that he became the image of the hiddenness, as it is written, how did it happen that, behold, he was destroyed and returned to his earth? And behold, death destroys all generations, and time and again they are destroyed. Where is the image? For his resemblance is not found among humans. And if someone would say that it will happen when he is renewed, behold, even then he cannot resemble divinity. No, man, the divine essence does not have a visible image, nor is it possible for created things to resemble the one to whom there is no likeness. Through love alone, it is possible for humans to resemble the hidden one, and through love, the maker also allows his own to resemble what is his. In love, he called the human image the image of his divine essence, and through grace, he called him with names that transcend him. Through grace, he granted him from the beginning of time the name of his divine essence, in order to depict the mystery of that which will happen at the end of times. In later times, he did confirm the name of the image. Therefore, he depicted in advance types pointing to future things. By giving this name, he was watchful from the beginning, and based on this expectation, he elevated humanity's fashioning. Because of this, he chose one people from the peoples, and he separated it from all, so that the leaven of life might be preserved in it. Because of this, he honored the righteous ones, one after another, that they might guard the mystery that is hidden in their limbs. The righteous ones on this condition also agreed with one another, and they handed down and transmitted the leaven in them from one to another. Adam gave it to Seth, who was called by the name of the image, and from Seth to Enoch and Lamech and Noah, who was pleasing to God. Noah prophesied and gave it to his son through blessings. Blessed is the Lord, the God of Shem, who reconciled us with him. And from Shem, it continued through the line of descent towards Abraham. And Abram guarded it diligently more than anyone else. Even the Creator, who saw that he was committed to keep his image, selected him and established him as a steward over the treasure of his name. In him, he wanted to reveal the great riches that he had placed in his forefathers, and in him he promised to bless everyone in the seed from him. With his offspring, he established a great covenant that will not be falsified, and he sealed it and gave it by means of an oath that will not be dissolved. This is the reason of the election of Abram and his progeny, that he would guard the treasure of life until it is revealed. And if not, let the son of Abraham, the hater of the people, say, why did the Creator choose him above all the others? Why did he give to him only the life-giving law? And why did he deprive the peoples from the benefit that is hidden in it? If all of the race of Adam is his, why does he choose one and reject the other in partiality? It is partiality that he elevates the one and lowers the other. And it is not justice that while they are one, they are not one. If he is the Creator and both the people and the peoples are his, why is his creation not equal as he is one and the same? There seems to be no fairness in the election of the people if it is not possible for the peoples to enjoy his goodness. No, son of Abraham, do not divide the equality of our race, and do not throw division between us and our Creator. As for your election, the cause is that the treasure of life is placed in it. Allow our mortality to be resurrected by the life that is from you. For the life of humanity, the Creator chose you and placed life within you. Why does it grieve you that humans live by the life force of your life? On account of all the election of Abram and his sons took place, so that as guides they might show humanity the way towards life. Life is hidden in the way of life according to the law, and it is transmitted from the one to the other secretly. From Abraham proceeded the promise, and it resided with David, and from the house of David it led and reached up until Mary. In Mary, the promise of life concluded the course of its path, and in her limbs it entered, came to rest, and resided as in a harbor. And the daughter of man came to be the harbor of peace for human nature. And no longer did the heavy waves of mortality shake her. As a vessel, she bore within her womb all our race, and she carried it forth and placed it on the shore of the sea of the kingdom on high. One spiritual being descended from on high, from the hidden one, and he directed her to run swiftly toward the region on high. A new message he cast down in the ears of the daughter of mortal ones. She greatly wondered at the newness of the voice that was speaking with her. A new conception without marriage did the watcher announce, and she received in it faith without hesitation. In faith, Mary consented to the celestial being, as the earth consented in the beginning to the voice of the Creator. That commandment which instructed the earth, whereupon it conceived Adam, and that same commandment depicted the second Adam in the earth of her body's womb. That craftsman who took the dust without hands, he fashioned in her a body that resembles that first body. That divine essence that breathed in Adam the spirit of life, that very essence created the soul that is akin to that one in the beginning. In a new way that resembles Adam's fashioning, he fashioned the second Adam, so that Adam would resemble Adam in all the aspects of Adam. His will took from the same Adamite dust and fashioned and made him skillfully with body and soul. The image of that image which death corrupted, he renewed by his hand, and in the same way he depicted it on the bodily tablet. His hint mixed the medicine of life with its images so that it would be able to give life in dead bodies. As a temple did he build it to be a dwelling place for his divinity, so that he might receive by it the worship of all from all created things. So So in terms of the larger homily on this commemoration of Mary, just a little bit of background about sort of its history. We have it's attested in 15 manuscripts of Narsai, including the oldest extant manuscript that we have of Narsai's works, which dates from somewhere between 1188 and 1288 CE. And it's also within the second oldest manuscript, and it's found within a series of Marian texts, including on the Nativity and also sort of an incomplete Yatha of Mary and the Magi, and including on the birth of our Lord. So this manuscript shows us that it was included within the liturgical year in terms of Sundays and feast days. The other, I mean, I think the larger, if you think about the themes that are throughout this Memra, so it begins with the creation of all things, and the creation of humanity specifically, and it moves from that to the recreation of all in Christ, and this very elaborate, I think this is a common theme within Narsai, this idea of these lineages and the passing on that sort of ties together the patriarchs down to the incarnation. And then you have this sort of beautiful meditation on the birth of Christ and Mary and her role. And then it moves into the second half, really deals with the divine and the human nature of Christ and how to accurately represent that, including a refutation of those that Narsai deems to be insufficiently orthodox, both those who will use the language of mixing. He's very concerned with the mixing of the human and divine nature. But he also rehearses arguments against those who, and he'll talk about sort of the Christ is only a creature. So he refutes Arius and sort of goes back to, assert his Nicene credentials. And then the ending, he does address directly, and you heard a little bit of that, but he does it more in the second half of the poem as well. This sort of direct address against those who would disagree with him. So this is one of the, I think, a very precise and very careful theological exposition and statement about Narsai's larger theological themes. The other Memra that I think this has a lot in common with that I translated earlier was Memra 81 on the Word made flesh. And I think even though that is often looked at and examined for his larger Christology, I think this Memra, especially in certain passages, is almost more technical. I think a few themes, I mean, this is, I think in terms of the language, his favored imagery, this really fits within the more of Narsai. And maybe this might be for some of you the first time reading and listening to Narsai's poetry. The more that I read this and sort of work with this poem, and his larger oeuvre, they're very common, he's very consistent in some of his ways of thinking about the salvation history and the arc of salvation history, as well as favored images and biblical passages. And I think the imagery around Mary as a harbor, he'll often talk about other biblical characters in terms of the peace. I'm thinking of his Memra on Solomon and the women before Solomon. He talks about Solomon in terms of the peace of his name. So I think that's a common theme for him. But this imagery of the harbor for Mary, he really develops beautifully here. The other thing that I think is, in terms of the study of Narsai within his context, of course, he's a student at the school of Edessa, and has imbibed the traditions of Ephraim, as well as being in this generation of Syriac writers that's receiving Theodore of Mopsuestia in translation. And he's often been studied in terms of his Christology. And one of the things that I think is significant to notice here is how the theme of love comes up often in terms of how Narsai and he doesn't just echo Theodore. I think he really inflects it within his own theological vision and thought, and these statements about love as being sort of the factor that keeps these natures together, I think is significant. And I think you also have, I mean, in terms of Narsai's larger style and in comparison, I mean, I think the poet I've worked on sort of as much as Narsai is Jacob, and Jacob is very much within the liturgy and has these beautiful invocational prayers. And the structure of how Narsai, even though he's writing in the same form as the Memra, he's very, often I read Narsai and I think of the classroom. He's very academic and he's very, but he does have these sort of, the way that he structures very, very carefully how he moves from one topic to the next and links through vocabulary, through kind of the concepts that he's working with. And I think another, you know, he's rehearsing Genesis, but you can see how he's retelling it in his own way and how he's extrapolating it and bringing in the figure of Satan and the accuser as well, and these sort of very specific themes around envy and honor. And he goes back to that within other Memra as well. So that's another point of consistency and I think comparison across his oeuvre, as well as this idea of the seed. And he comes back to Seth often, and sort of the passing on of the medicine of life, of sort of, leading up to the incarnation at several points throughout his different oeuvre. So I think this particular, if this is your first time reading and thinking with Narsai, I think this particular poem includes and brings together a lot of the larger themes for Narsai. And you can see how, in comparison to Jacob, who, of course, we have more of his works, often, I mean, there are more female figures within Jacob to examine, but this is another, you can see how carefully and sort of reverently he's bringing Mary into the salvation history and scripting what she is doing in her role in the revelation. And that movement from hiddenness to revelation is another theological move that he does quite a bit. So I think, maybe we'll move more towards questions and reactions and things that you found interesting. I'd be happy to stop there and I can elaborate more.
Well, thank you very much, Erin. That was a wonderful presentation of this very intriguing poem. It's so puzzling in many ways that you don't get to the topic of the poem, if they're supposed to be married, until about halfway through. But as you say, the imagery of the harp is very beautiful, and so one's rewarded for one's patience up to there. Well, we've got a certain amount of time for discussion, so anyone who would like to comment, ask questions, either do it through the chat or through the reactions at the bottom of your screen. And then I think Teo will try and identify who's got questions. So any questions, comments?